Hello everyone, my name is Eric Stewart and I live in the Tampa Bay area and I started a website called Code Green Community. I'm going to talk a little bit today about what we've been doing as well as how you can get involved, as well as a little bit about peak oil, something that Zeitgeist 3 brought up in the last movie. Okay, I got it now. So this is a little bit of the overview that I'm going to be talking about today. So the situation that we are in, it seems like all the problems are increasingly complex. They're building on themselves. The environmental problems, the ecological, the economy crisis that we're in right now, and some of the geopolitical things that are going on. But really all the solutions are embarrassingly simple. We're at a peak of everything. Half of our world's oil is peaking, half the world's topsoil, half of the world's rainforest, a third of the natural gas, a third of the coal. And all of the resources that we use for living are starting to peak and are on a decline in production year after year. One of the most important things is a peak of production of oil. In the 1960s, geoscientists working for Shell Oil Company released a report saying that there would be a peak of production in America in the 1970s. His name is M. King Hubbert, and his Hubbert curve predicted that in the 1970s in America it would peak, but for the entire world it would be around the year 2000. Well, last year there was a report putting out that I'm going to talk about later, but in this graph that you have right here, in the blue line you can see all of the projected discoveries. We discovered most of the world's oil in the 1960s, and every year after that we've been discovering less and less oil. And the projected production peaked somewhere around 2006 for conventional oil, which is the really easy and cheap oil to get to. And we've been declining in production of that oil year after year ever since. And then the red bar in the back is our projected demand, with India and China and all the other developing countries trying to pretty much be like America as far as our car culture. The demand for oil is rising exponentially. This is a graph that was put out by the International Energy Agency in the World Energy Outlook 2010. As you can see, the blue line is the conventional oil. That's the oils that we can get on land and are really cheap to get to. And then the unconventional oil, which is the oil like the tar sands and some of the out in the ocean rigging, like the Deepwater Horizon that exploded in the Gulf of Mexico. That is the oil that's really expensive. There's two types of oil. There's light oil and then heavy oil. Heavy oil has sulfides in it and different minerals that you have to extract before you can refine it. So it's more expensive to use that oil, and that's the oil that we've left in the ground because we wanted to go for the cheap, easy to get to oil first. So all the oil that we have left, it's going to be more expensive. So one thing that we have to think about is how powerful is oil? Oil is very thermodynamically rich. It's a really dense source of energy. So if you were to have a cubic mile of oil, the equivalent amount of energy, you would need 52 nuclear power plants or 104 coal-fired plants or 32,000 windmills or over 91 million solar panels. So to try and convert from oil to a different energy source, we're going to have to exponentially grow that. Which leads us to different energy scenarios playing out over the next 50 years. As you can see, we've ascended over time using energy, and we can continue this. And this is a graph that one of the founders of permaculture, something I'll talk about later, His name is David Holmgren. He speaks about these energy futures that he kind of puts together. And one is called techno-fantasy, where we'll find some way, some technology that will replace oil on a one-to-one basis or exponentially grow our energy use. And then the green tech stability is where we can't have more energy year after year, but we just kind of flatline, where we find a way to contribute to the decline of oil that we're having, as well as build more oil for the demand that's growing in other developing countries. But this is not oil specifically, this is any energy source, whether it's solar or nuclear or coal. And then there's another alternative, which is a creative descent, where we understand that our energy resources are depleting and that we will probably be forced to lower our energy lifestyle. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a doom and gloom situation. A lot of our energy is wasted. So if we can find ways to collaboratively consume and utilize our resources in a more efficient way, we can have a better lifestyle, but still use less energy overall. And then the last scenario is a crash. If you understand biology or if you understand thermodynamics, usually whatever goes up goes down. So if we can understand that this is a possibility, that there could be a possible crash. So this is something that we should keep in our mindset as well. This is a graph of global oil production. As you can see, most of the world's countries have already post-peak oil. In America, it was in the 1970s that we had a peak production of oil. And what we did is we shifted from using oil here in America to using oil from OPEC and other countries, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Egypt. But as you can see in this graph, Egypt is actually a post-peak production country. They actually peaked in production around 1996. So every single year, they have to import more and more oil. So this is something that we should consider, because I'm pretty sure that all of you are probably stimulated by the Egyptian revolutions. These revolutions are started because they have a system that's unsustainable, and these kids are understanding that and they're revolting against it. They're having to import food. Their food prices are more and more expensive year after year. They've been exponentially growing. There's 80 million Egyptians, and only 3% of their land is arable. So they're going to have some real difficult challenges as the years go on. So something that I've been interested in over the past 2 years is a thing called transition towns. Transition towns started by a gentleman named Rob Hawkins, who is a permaculture designer, who showed a movie called The End of Suburbia. And in this movie, he discussed the idea of peak oil and how it will play out with suburbia, which is a heavily car-dependent culture. And so it's been a grassroots movement. It started in the United Kingdom, and it's been traveling from there. And this handbook details what they've been doing in their town of Totnes on how to a step-by-step approach of how they've developed plans of action to reduce their energy use. And some things that they've been starting are community gardens. They've been starting up action groups. They've been having work groups that are working on certain things like transportation and energy, developing renewable energy in their town. Rob Hopkins, this is a quote that I'll just read really quickly. I believe that a lower energy, more localized future in which we move from being consumers to being producer consumers, where food, energy, and other essentials are locally produced, local economies are strengthened, and we have learned to live more within our means, is a step towards something extraordinary, not a step away from something inherently irreplaceable. So the need of energy transition, we have this challenge of global climate change. This is a direct correlation of our energy use. Whenever we go in our car, we don't really think about it. You have 8 or 6 or whatever size car that you have, pistons blowing up pretty much in your engine, and what they're blowing up is this gasoline that's converting from gas into carbon dioxide. And we've been having an accumulation of this for the past 150 years. And carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for thousands of years. It's not sequestered very easily. So we have climate change, we have peak oil, and both of these are telling us in a societal way that we need to change, that this way is not sustainable. So the best choice, which is the transition towns, is to proactively undertake this transition as a society, as a community. And one of the things that we can do is relocalize. We can start relocalizing our production of food, our production of energy, our production of goods, so that our goods don't travel thousands of miles or hundreds of miles, but maybe dozens or feet. We have to start looking at locally developing our own currency, because the exponential growth, as in the Zeitgeist movie talks about, that's how our system works. So as this system starts to decline, we're going to have to look at how we're going to still maintain trading and bartering in an equitable way. We also have to look at reducing our consumption. We consume, we're 5% of the world's population, and we consume 25% of the world's oil supplies right now. And as these other countries are developing and as oil production declines, we're going to have to reduce our consumption overall. One thing that they do in the energy descent action, what they do in transition towns is create an energy descent action plan, which is a step-by-step approach developed by the community in the town that they're at, of what individuals can do both on a local and on a community level to start planning for this. And I didn't bring the book today, but they have a really well written out book for the transition topness, where they do a step-by-step approach planning out the next 30 years of their transportation system, such as setting up car shares and bike trading schemes and different approaches of developing local food and local energy in their town. So by having this vision and making it a positive vision, it's something that a lot of community members will gravitate towards. So what can we do? This is a couple of slides that I'm going to be talking about. In permaculture, there's a concept that Bill Mollison really talks about zones. You start with your first zone, which is zone 0, which is yourself. So you start at your nose and you work your way out from there. So it starts with the individual working on his or her own household, and then developing that out to your community at large. Because we can talk and we can think about these grand schemes of changing the world, but if we don't change ourselves, how can we go anywhere? So the first thing is to start having a shift in consciousness. We're always kind of conditioned to think that bigger is better, but maybe smaller is better. Maybe not getting yourself in debt for that 60-inch plasma screen TV was such a bright idea a couple years ago. I know it wasn't for me. But understanding this, that you don't have to grow constantly to be happy, that you can actually have a much simpler lifestyle and be extremely happy. Try and consider your obsession with stuff. Is it really material goods that brings you happiness? Understanding, what you want and what you actually need, and taking on voluntary simplicity. Connecting and honoring with nature. We're all a part of nature. The DNA that's in us is the same DNA that's in the most of the organisms that are on this planet. So we have a common heritage, and we have to honor and respect that. And I think one thing that's really important is we can talk about changing the world again, but if we're not going out and meeting our neighbors and talking and showing what we're doing in our own lives, we're not going to get anywhere. So it's really about going out and talking to your neighbors. I know for me personally, there was a civic association in my neighborhood that I never participated with. They were to host pancake breakfasts every month, and they were only getting 50 or 60 people showing up. 2 people that just moved into the neighborhood went about themselves, going door by door, meeting people and handing out flyers for the next pancake breakfast. And over 167 people came to that pancake breakfast. So 2 people can make a huge difference in your own neighborhood. It's about taking on that ambition and going out and meeting your friends and neighbors that are all around you. And also it's about helping the less fortunate. Right now in the Tampa Bay area, there's about 131,000 people that are unemployed. If we're not taking care of the less fortunate among us, then we're not building an equitable society. So we need to start looking at how we can best help each other out. In a food crisis, where would you rather live? Would you rather live in a lawn that's well manicured and you have to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to keep it up? Or would you like to live in a permaculture garden where food is abundant and all around? I think in the Zeitgeist movement here, I think Audrey is involved. She's a permaculture designer. She has a backyard garden. One of the things that we've done with Code Green Communities, we started resource mapping. Stacy, a member of ours, has started developing a map of Tampa Bay farmers markets. And we're trying to map out the resources that we have so we know where we can work from. I was amazed how many farmers markets that are already established in Tampa Bay area. I mean, literally anyone can drive or walk or bike within a distance of a farmer's market. This is actually not older picture. She's added on more farmers markets since then. So another thing is community sharing. We're kind of living in a society that conditions us to consume and consume and consume. But really, when we share, I was just talking with Tracy at my table. She was talking about power drills. I own a power drill. I know my next door neighbor owns a power drill. But is it the power drill I want, or is it the hole in the wall that I want? So if we can share the resources that we have, we can utilize this and build abundance in our society. We don't all need the same thing. We can share some of these things that we only use for maybe 15 minutes out of the year. So this is about food security. One thing that we've been doing in the Newport Richey area is we did a permablitz. We did one on Barbara's house, and we did one on some other people's houses where we came together and we blitzed their front and backyard, setting up garden beds. And then we had a potluck afterwards, because if food's there, everyone comes. Also, we've been trying to raise awareness, along with Sergey up at the Habitat for Humanity. We've been showing movies on a bi-weekly basis, and last year it was a monthly basis. So we try and bring people out to kind of learn about some of the problems that we're facing. So we watched Food Inc. I believe Zeitgeist was shown up at Habitat. We've been showing different movies to kind of raise our consciousness together. We've also been hosting throughout the Tampa Bay area. You can go on the Code Green Community website and find different workshops that are all over the Tampa Bay area regarding creating things at your home, such as beekeeping classes, kefir classes, which is a natural soda that can be made at home, personal care, preserving food. I don't know how many people want to milk goats, but raising chickens is very easy. Sharing again, free cycling, bartering, carpooling, natural living support groups. We need to support each other, because this is a really difficult thing. We're conditioned to go to the grocery store and buy the latest herbal essence because we just saw that, just a half hour in a shower commercial. So we need to get away from that and learn how we can naturally take care of our own bodies and not have to rely on corporations. And also we need to work on policy. I actually own some chickens in Pasco County, and I thought that we were agriculture county, and I realized that chickens were actually illegal. You are not allowed to own chickens, and I had a citation of $500 because I had chickens in my backyard. So there's policies that we can work on as a group to start developing and changing. Also, there's going to be that great reskilling. We have lost the ability to produce anything anymore. We are so conditioned to be consumers, we don't know how to produce anything. We don't know how to make our own food. We don't know how to clean our own water. And most of the things that we buy are made in China. So how can we start developing a way for us to get away from that? And we need to have people that either know this or start developing these skills, and we need to share that. I think right now it's easy to talk about gardening, but you go out there and you try and garden, you are not going to get a lot of food as you think you are. You have to learn the skills. You have to learn how nature works, and it takes a lot. It's a lot of work. And so we have to reverse the great de-skilling that we've been having over the last 40 years. So in a lot of ways, we have to honor our elders, the people that survived the Great Depression, the people that went through World War II, the baby boomers that have stuck with learning these ways. We need to learn from them and respect what knowledge they have, and understand that they are very powerful people that can teach us. And teachers are the most powerful people. Building resilient neighborhoods. I think this is something in American culture. We kind of live in bubbles. We live in a bubble of our air-conditioned home, to our air-conditioned car, to our bubble of our air-conditioned work, back to our bubble of our air-conditioned car, back to our air-conditioned house. So if we can get out of our bubble and start working in our neighborhoods. Like I said, 2 people got over 100 more people to show up at an event. So if we work in our own neighborhoods, start talking to our neighbors and getting to know, having these conversations of what are we worried about? If we share our fears and share our anxieties, we can start understanding that there are solutions, and they're very, very simple. It's about community. It's about caring about one another. We're not a bubble. We're all together in this. And so Transition Towns kind of gives us a model. It's not, a definitive thing. The Transition Handbook is a series of ideas that anyone can implement, whether it's Zeitgeist or whatever movement you're in. You can implement these ideas, such as open space, where you have a great circle and you kind of break up into smaller groups on certain subjects. So if you're interested in food, you're going to gravitate towards a discussion around food. But if you're more interested in energy, you can gravitate towards that. So if any of the Zeitgeist leaders here, I recommend the Transition Handbook. It gives you these tools that you can utilize in your groups to develop the movement. And also, we have to start planning out, this energy descent action plan. Where we are today is not where we're going to be tomorrow, so we need to start developing an action plan of what we can do so we can start having a vision that's positive that we can work towards. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have an idea of in the next 10 years, maybe 10 or 20% of our locally grown food is consumed by local consumers, instead of having to ship in food from 1,500 miles away. So this is a disclaimer. Transition Towns is a social experiment, but it's on a massive scale. Just like Zeitgeist, we don't know what's going to rise out of this. This is something that we are, as a society, just experimenting with. And that gives us a creative ability that some other institutions don't have. We have the ability to use our imagination and be creative and really champion what we want to see. And so if we can come together as a community and start developing these ideas, something can arise out of it. And if we wait for governments, it'll be too little too late. If we act as individuals, it'll be too little. But if we act as communities, it might just be enough, just in time. Thank you very much. I have to leave because unfortunately I still have a mortgage and I have to pay it. So I have to work in about an hour. But I'd like to take if it's okay with Frankie, if I can take any questions that you might have.
How can we contact you?
Well, I have this website. It's a Ning website, which is a social website, and it's www.codegreencommunity.org. I have some slips. I'll leave them in the back if you want to take one. And we have these maps of where all of our members are, and we have little local groups all over the Tampa Bay area. And so we've been developing this. There's about 400 people on our website right now. And we have a lot of online learning stuff. So stuff about how to garden in your backyard, community leadership. There's a lot of stuff about transition on there. And there's a lot of online free information that you can get.
Great. Is this a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, I started this 2 years ago in my off time, and I'm just doing this because I feel it's something we really need. And so this website has been crowdsourced. We have a donation button, and you can donate whatever amount you want, or you can subscribe, and all that money goes directly towards a bank account that's in a community bank account for this website, and we use that money also for projects. It's all trying to be transparent as possible. I'm not trying to make any money off this. I have a job on my own, so this is all transparent. It's a nonprofit, yes.
Does it have to be a 501c3?
No, I've been doing research, and if you don't raise over $10,000, you don't have to establish a 501c3. And so all this money is not tax deductible. It's just going into a bank account for the website so it can maintain itself. And I've been producing YouTubes, and I started up a weekly blog talk radio where I have people call in and we have weekly talks. I'm YouTubing this right now, actually. So we have about 35 YouTubes of things that are developing in the Tampa Bay area. In the back?
Yeah, as far as YouTube or even just community events for get-together, are there a lot of events going on right now with Code Green as far as reskilling?
Yeah, if I can bring it up, I can show you the website real quick. Right now there's about 50 events going on, anywhere from Sarasota to Spring Hill, and in Tampa too. I don't know if there's internet here, so we'll see.
Eric?
I'm sorry.
www, make sure you talk about that.
Oh yeah, it's www.codegreencommunity.org. Apparently, when you just do codegreencommunity.org, it just takes you to GoDaddy.com. So you have to do that www. And I don't have the internet, so I can't show you it. But I have some flyers that I put out, so if you're interested, you can check it out. Yes?
For your current projects, do you have any particular skill sets that are in immediate demand that might be able to be filled by our community?
Well, I honestly, it's been open source, and that's my mentality, and I think Zeitgeist is all about that too. I try and keep it where if you have anything that you can contribute, you can come and contribute it. And so we have like local chapters that are already meeting. I think the biggest one right now is our Newport Richey chapter. There's another group in St. Petersburg that's affiliated with us, and I've gone out of my way and I've met local people around the Tampa Bay area, such as people in Seminole and in Tampa. So there's groups forming, and you can connect with them. We also have a members map where you can actually connect with people right in your neighborhood. Are there any more questions?
So you might want to put a little more emphasis on that Indo-suburbia thing that you mentioned earlier. That's just nails exactly what you're talking about. And there's a website called relocalize.net.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of them. They have localization chapters too that is exactly what you're talking about. You're on the right track.
They, I believe they were a part of. They started out around 2008, and then when the transition towns started kicking off, I think they stopped the relocalization.net and they switched over to transition towns. Transition towns, just because it has such an open platform, a lot of people are going under that title.
James, you know James Edward Princeworth?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah,
yes.
He pushed that actually, so that you can like have your shops downstairs and you live upstairs, and everybody lives a lot closer. It's just brilliant.
Walkable communities.
Yeah.
I think that, we can talk about changing or tearing down institutions, but we need the institutions that are around because they have all the tools and they have all the ideas. We just need to move those ideas and tools forward in the way that we want. What you're talking about is called mixed use land use, and what that means is you can have commercial and residential in the same area. So you can have your commercial area underneath and a residential on top, and you can do this in a way that you can have walkable communities. And so they're already, it's out there, but we're not supporting it because we've moved away towards suburbia, which Kunstler talks about, which is really a government policy. In the 1980s, we really pushed it under Reagan that we wanted to move towards these bigger McMansions, and we wanted to develop these suburbias. And these suburbias really are a lot of energy that we wasted because we can never get that energy back. So we have to start looking at how we can develop these walkable communities again.
What other types of organizations, aside from the Zeitgeist movement, are you currently affiliated with?
I try and talk to anyone that wants to listen. I've gone to churches, I've gone to the government, I've been to Tarpon Springs. They were trying to push for allowing chickens, so I went and talked to them about my movement in the transition town. I'm trying to get out the word to as many organizations. I'm working with the Habitat for Humanity right now up in Pasco County. Sergey, he's the director there. He's been phenomenal. He's been really awesome. We're starting a community garden. We've been doing a book club on a permaculture book called Guy's Garden. We've been doing these permablitzes where we're trying to help our members get more of their food from their backyard. So it's about helping each other and finding whoever wants to help with that. Any last questions? Well, I hope you check out the website. It's www.codegreencommunity.org, and thank you very much. Production peaked somewhere around 2006 for conventional oil, which is the really easy and cheap oil to get to. And we've been declining in production of that oil year after year ever since. And then the red bar in the back is our projected demand, with India and China and all the other developing countries trying to pretty much be like America as far as our car culture. The demand for oil is rising exponentially. This is a graph that was put out by the World. Okay, I got it now. So this is a little bit of the overview that I'm going to be talking about today. So the situation that we are in, it seems like all the problems are increasingly complex. They're building on themselves, the environmental problems, the ecological, the economy crisis that we're in right now, and some of the geopolitical things that are going on. But really, all of the solutions are embarrassingly simple. We're at a peak of everything. His name is M. King Hubbard, and his Hubbard curve predicted that in the 1970s in America it would peak, but for the entire world it would be around the year 2000. Well, last year there was a report putting out that I'm going to talk about later, but in this graph that you have right here, in the blue line you can see all the projected discoveries. We discovered most of the world's oil in the 1960s, and every year after that we've been discovering less and less oil. And half of our world's oil is peaking, half the world's topsoil, half of the world's rainforest, a third of the natural gas, a third of the coal. And all of the resources that we use for living are starting to peak and are on a decline in production year after year. One of the most important things is a peak of production of oil. In the 1960s, geoscientists working for Shell Oil Company released a report saying that there would be a peak of production in America in the 1970s. Hello everyone, my name is Eric Stewart, and I live in the Tampa Bay area, and I started a website called Code Green Community. I'm going to talk a little bit today about what we've been doing, as well as how you can get involved, as well as a little bit about peak oil, something that Zeitgeist 3 brought up in the last movie.